Good day. Good day and welcome to Mental Health and You. I'm your host, Cynthia Timms. Let's talk about athletes and anxiety today. Anxiety in athletes, mental health in athletes, athletes and mental health. Do you know someone with who's dealing with this? Do you love an athlete? I know we all do. Do we admire an athlete, even from a distance? To help me sort this out, we're going to bring on our guest, Jordan Noblet, a former D1 player, basketball player from Cal State Northridge, and played professionally in Australia.
Yep.
In my introduction, thank you, Jordan, for being a part of this experience, Mental Health in You, where we try to sort so much out
Thank you for
about.
having me.
You're very welcome. As I said I tried to say in the introduction, athletes and anxiety. Now,
Yes,
you're the founder of Athletes and Anxiety, a website that highlights this.
correct. Yep.
Yes. Why was this important to you, especially in these times?
It was extremely important to me because I actually grew up with anxiety. I didn't know what it was until I was about 14, 15 years old. Um, but I still never said anything to any coaches, teammates growing up. I was kind of part of that culture where I used to think it was weak to be vulnerable, to come out and say what you're dealing with. So I actually kept it a secret from all my coaches in high school and college, professionally. Um, I kept it a secret the whole time. I was scared I was going to be judged by my peers, by my coaches, and they would think I'm quote unquote, weird, or there's
Mm,
something wrong with me. And when we hit the pandemic in 2020, it affected my mental health. Even I'm 38 now. At the time, I was 36, 37, 36. But I saw a lot of athletes going through it. They couldn't live their normal life like everybody else,
mm,
and a lot were having anxiety. And I felt like it was important to get a voice and kind of help start a community to encourage athletes to get out their anxiety, talk to their coaches, see a therapist. If you
mhm,
need medication, I actually take an anxiety medication once a day. But
mhm,
it really struck a nerve with me at home through what I've dealt with, and I would just love to create a strong community that can help other athletes that are going through it, whether that be depression, anxiety, um, OCD. Just, I mean, there's a lot in the mental health space.
You said you didn't want to be seen as, at one point, weird, or as we talked about earlier, I've heard you talk about, you didn't want to be seen as crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
And we talk about this on this show, and in my work as a peer specialist, the stigma of mental health,
very much so.
a certain way, like it's a weakness, maybe it's
100%.
a defect.
Yes,
What?
almost
Yeah.
like it's a disability. You almost feel like, can you even be yourself? And I was so scared to say something to a coach or a teammate, especially, hey, I'm having a panic attack. I was worried they wouldn't even know what those are.
Mm,
And I think that's where we get lost in mental health with ourselves as well, is
yes.
we think no one will understand what we're going through. And so we also get scared to say something, not only out of rejection, but
Hmm.
just maybe there's really something wrong with me. And we like to kind of run from our problems. I used to go to sleep when I get panic attacks. That was kind of my way of dealing with them rather than going through them. I would try and sleep them off, which worked temporarily, but not long term.
How did it impact you? You say you tend to sleep it off. You wanted to sleep it off. What
Yes.
other way did it impact you as an athlete? Because you can't
So
be sleeping on the court. So
100%.
how you maybe
So,
before a game or getting ready for a game,
oh, I used to get
or
so nervous.
going to class.
Right. And that's the thing is, it almost feels like you're kind of living a double life.
Yes.
And so any 20-minute break between class, which was a lot back then for me, I was trying to sneak in like a 10-minute nap. um,
Mm-hmm.
the good thing about Division I basketball in the higher levels is there's so much time in the day dedicated towards sports. You have a lot to focus on, which can help with your anxiety. Idle time is anxiety's best friend. That's when you
Mm.
start overthinking. But before games, um, I traditionally don't like to fly. So when we'd be on airplanes, I'd be just white knuckling a pen in my hand, sweating. And everyone else is watching movies on laptops, and I used to wonder, like, God, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just
Mm-hmm.
get on the plane and be normal?
Yes.
And I think a big thing too is not judging yourself. I've noticed that we tend to be our harshest critic when it comes to our anxiety and depression. And we anticipate this negative reaction from society, from coaches, teammates. It's really not the case. Because once I
Yeah.
did come out with it to my coaches and teammates, they all said, "Man, I wish you'd have just told me. I
Mm.
my mom dealt with it," or
Mm.
they actually knew somebody that did deal with it, and they wouldn't have acted weird towards me one bit. So I wish I would have been more transparent. And that's one thing I try and encourage a lot of athletes that I deal with today is you're not going to get treated how you probably think you're going to get treated. The response is going to be better than you could probably ever imagine. So,
Yes. Um, Going back, we talked about you grew up in Montana, and you grew up
yeah,
in born in Montana, grew up in Vegas, right?
Montana and Vegas. My parents were divorced when I was 2, so my
Mm-hmm.
dad moved to Vegas. I was probably in grade school, and I used to just go back and forth between Missoula, Montana, and Las Vegas, which is 2 completely different places from each other.
Mm-hmm. You know, I asked you that because as a child, we go through so much. I know I did. I
Yes,
had depression, I had anxiety, just being a kid in this world, much less an athlete,
right.
and just growing up and trying to find yourself, who you are, trying to fit in.
Yep, yep.
And I wonder, I know for me, I had it as a kid. I used to like escape into my writing. I used to
Yeah.
write poetry. I used to daydream a lot. Some people
Yes,
say I still do, particularly when I don't want to,
I still
can't deal with
daydream.
it. Yes.
Yeah,
It's helped, it has enhanced my creativity.
100%.
But as a kid, how did you when did you first realize that there's an issue? There was something, you know.
So so I would always get really nervous for sporting events.
Mm,
Of course, talking in front of class. I mean, that's something people get nervous of regardless. But I really didn't realize something was wrong until I was 14, and I actually had my first panic attack at the dinner table and had to run up to my room. And my mom told me, "I think you're having a panic attack." I didn't even know what that was, and it explained all these feelings of almost like hyper nervousness before athletic events, specifically traveling, but a change in my environment.
yeah.
And then when my mom told me what it was, I started seeing a therapist, but I still I thought it was temporary, almost like a
Mm,
headache, just something you
yeah.
deal with in the moment, passes, goes away.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
never really wanted to acknowledge it. I kind of live by this motto: if I don't think about it, it won't happen. If I think
Yes.
about it, I'm going to give it more power, and it's going
Hmm.
to come into my life more. Not knowing, no, I should probably dive straight into it and go through it instead of running from it, which makes it more powerful. And
Mm.
that's exactly what happens when you try and run from it.
You know, going through it as opposed to running from it.
Yep.
As you get older now, you're getting more involved in sports.
Yep.
Just as a young man, you're involved more with your friends.
Yeah.
You're doing things. You're trying to find your identity, who you are, your place in this world, which we all do. Some of us still do.
Right.
As I said, I said, Jordan, sometimes I'm constantly searching for my purpose.
Yeah.
I used to, and that's what depression and anxiety did for me. Being alone, being a loner. I was always searching what my purpose was. And, but you said, getting back what you said, the anxiety, how it can, I said, how it weighed me down so
Mhm.
much, it made me afraid. But
Yes.
going through it, for me, I said poetry. Okay. I mentioned poetry. What I did just to deal with it, I used to go to poetry. I started going to poetry readings
Oh, that's awesome.
here in New York. Greenwich Village, we had these clubs downtown where you can go open night
Yep.
and just do poetry. I had all these poems that I was writing as a kid, and a teenager. And then I started doing these poems, going out there and doing these poems, not only in church and school, but in clubs.
Yes, that's all. That's amazing, actually.
Sort of like you being on the basketball court, sort of.
That's 100% what it is. Yep.
And it made me feel like, oh, wow, the things I was talking about, the loneliness I was dealing with,
Yes.
the sadness, and
Yes.
people would start clapping and snapping. It's like, oh, wow, I'm not alone in this.
They get it.
People,
Yeah.
I'm not weird, I'm not crazy.
Right.
Well, maybe a little weird, maybe a little crazy, but that's okay.
We all are. We all are.
We got weirdness and crazy, yours good, okay? As long as you
Right.
don't like overtake you.
Right.
But
Exactly.
but but going forward, I say that to say you're making your anxiety work for you, making
Yes.
your depression work for you, turning it around, going through it.
Yep.
Now, fast forward, you're playing basketball in high school. When did you start playing?
I mean, I started playing really young. God, when I was a kid, but I didn't take it seriously until I got to my sophomore, junior year of high school. That's when I really got serious about it. And I kind of knew it was the only way I would make it to college was to get a scholarship somewhere.
Hmm.
So it,
Wow.
it became then that was part of my anxiety because I'm a biologically I'm an only child, and I was
Okay.
raised by a single mother when I was with my mom, and I have my stepmother who's incredible on my dad's side, but I was
Hmm.
mainly with my mother, and I think put extra pressure on myself I probably didn't need about
Hmm.
getting a scholarship, which would raise my anxiety even more because going
Hmm.
into each game, it was you got to have a good game this game. What if, college coaches are out in the stands and you don't have a good game and don't get a scholarship? And I mean, you
Yes.
know how anxiety works. It makes you overthink so much. You start thinking, well, if I don't get this scholarship, then what if I can't go to college? And it just kind of dominoes into one thought after one thought. And that would be exhausting. It would keep me up at night. I would be tired in the morning. Have trouble getting up for school sometimes. It's depression, anxiety can be exhausting, but if you make it work for you and like I said, go through it and kind of turn around and face it, it can become very empowering and almost like a superpower for you.
Yes. So let's talk about your time in Australia as a professional. What led you then? How
So,
was that experience?
well, that experience, it kind of ended before it started, unfortunately. So I signed the contract to go to a Bathurst, Australia, and 1 month before I was scheduled to leave, I broke my foot in 3 places. And that ultimately is what led to my retirement professionally from basketball. It took about a year to get back from that injury, which
Hmm.
that created a whole different level of depression and anxiety in me because I felt like I lost my purpose. I kind of got lost myself,
Yes.
and they say don't let your sport define you.
Yes.
I let it define me. I created I'm Jordan the basketball player. This is my purpose. So when
Hmm.
that ended, I went through some serious depression. What do I do? I don't know what to do. I'm not passionate about anything else. I kind of hit the bottom a little bit before I bounced back up and realized I can still be active around athletes, basketball and sports, whether it be doing, shows like this or even training, younger kids, whatever. But my Australia journey unfortunately ended 1 month before I was supposed to leave. And it was devastating for me. That was tough.
Hmm. So how did you pivot? This because you're an athlete. This was your dream.
Yep.
Even though you don't want to define yourself as just that.
Yep.
But it had to have been devastating. How did that impact your anxiety? How did that impact
Oh,
your depression, if you had any?
huge, huge.
Mhm.
I remember having the conversation with loved ones of mine, and
Yes.
I would say, "Hey, I don't want to offend you, but I don't know how to be a quote unquote normal person."
Yes.
And they kind of laughed. I said, "No, because everywhere I've gone since late high school through college was there's Jordan the basketball player, or going to a store, people giving me discounts for things, some
Hmm.
some special treatment here and there." But when I lost what I felt at the time is like my identity, I
Hmm.
just I remember telling these people, I go in somewhere, no one knows who I am. I'm a regular person. And that it made me kind of have to find myself. And the thing about growth,
You have to reimagine yourself as something else. I'm not a basketball player, so who am I?
right? It's just part of something I did, but it's not
Yes.
who I am.
Yes.
And what I noticed is with growth, everyone thinks growth is you're just going to go up, hit this spot, go down,
Hmm.
but it's more up, down, up, down. I'd have some terrible days and then better days, better days. Growth is always a process. And I've kind of taught myself that when hard times are happening, it usually means something good is right around the corner.
We talk about that in peer support too, Jordan. How we dare say recovery and growth
Yep.
is a process. You go up, you go down, you go back, you go sideways.
Yes.
That's part of the process, but you don't give up
Right.
because you're not alone. There's support.
Yep.
So, speaking of
Exactly.
support, when you were going through this, who was your support, if any, around you as you
So
tried to imagine your life?
I'm extremely fortunate with my support system. I have a
Hmm.
uh, a best friend who started out as a basketball mentor. He also played Division I basketball, but he was a huge support system of mine. My mom, my dad, between those three, those were probably my biggest support system through my entire life.
Hmm.
It took me a while to even become open with my best friend about it. And once I was, I've, I mean, he still will call me every day. I'll get a call in a couple hours, I'm sure today. He'll just say, "Hey, how are you doing today?"
Yes.
It is so important to develop a support system. And I realize not everybody has that. Not everyone
No.
has parents. Not everyone has a best friend. I've met a lot of people that don't have a friend, but
Hmm.
there is groups out there. I know, at least here in Phoenix, if you even search on Facebook, there's anxiety groups that meet publicly out here.
Hmm.
And the thing I stress is you cannot go through this alone. First of all, this anxiety, depression likes to isolate you. It likes to get you alone, and then the overthinking process begins, and the next thing you know, you could be in bed for 2-3 days if you let it. But reach out to people. You'd be amazed by how many people know what's going on. You could always reach out to me. I've talked to so many people I've never even met and just help them through one day or talk to them for a week or a month. But you have to get a support group of some sort. And I also have an incredible therapist. It did
Good.
take me a couple therapists to find a good therapist. That can be a
Mhm.
journey itself.
Indeed.
And you have to
Yes.
find who works for you.
Yes.
I'm on medication. I take one anxiety pill in the morning, but I didn't take medication for a long time. I was kind of anti-medication until Kevin Love, the basketball player, came
Yeah.
forward and said that he takes medication. So I kind of said, okay, well, if he does it, maybe I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
And the main thing is you don't have to be on medication your whole life. I know how people are when they talk
Hmm.
about being, they say doped up or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you can be on it for until a certain point till you feel comfortable and ready to step away from it.
You
So
know, and it's Jordan. It's important to remind people that medication, that's just part of your support.
yes,
It's a necessary part, but it's just part of your support. You talked about your friends, your therapists,
yep,
you your family.
yep,
So that's what we talk about. What is it? What does your support system look like in its
exactly,
totality? Your
exactly.
what is it that that makes you get up in the morning? I may not have basketball again, or I
Yeah,
may not be able to write like I used to, but what makes me want to still get up, and how can I still appreciate life and
mhm.
reimagine life, appreciate the sunshine, appreciate the rain?
That,
You know,
and that's it right there.
yes,
You learn to find gratitude in
yes,
everyday things, or what you would look
there,
at as small things in the past. Because
yes,
I'll usually go on these daily walks, especially when I go through it, and I'll tell myself, okay, pick out 5 things as you're walking that you see, smell, can touch. I'll look at
hmm,
the trees differently and see birds in the trees. I might
yes,
take a deep breath. What can I smell? And it's a exercise of grounding yourself. But
yes.
that's one thing that I'm very grateful for anxiety and depression about, is it's made me kind of do a reevaluation of my life and be much more appreciative and grateful for little things. So what keeps me going is my friends and family, but also knowing if I can just have one interaction that day that touches one person,
Yes.
that's massive. And
Yes.
all these things keep me going. I
Oh,
journal. Journal is
yes.
so important to me. I write down my feelings, what I'm grateful for, maybe what I want to accomplish for the day. I actually do some poetry on the side. I find things that I'm passionate about to kind of dive myself into. I recently got a vinyl player about 2 months ago. I've been doing nothing but listening to 70s soul music the last 2 months.
Well, you really going old school on us.
Right?
Vinyl.
Yeah. No, I mean, I just got.
We're talking to a certain generations here, Jordan, who may not even get what vinyl is about, y'all. But
I know,
before
right?
CDs and before
MP3
DVDs,
players.
there were vinyl, there were records, there were turntables, y'all. It was so cool, and I used to have one. I still got records here, but I
Yep.
have no turntable. But that's I'll deal with that at some point. As we pivot, I want to talk about athletes with anxiety. This
Yep.
website.
Yep.
When did it start? When did it start, and how has been the reaction been to it?
So I actually started it in during the pandemic, during
Mm.
2020. And I had a conversation with another friend of mine. He played football at Wyoming and then in the NFL for a while. And he deals with anxiety, depression. And we were just talking about, you had all these athletes at the time, whether it be the NBA guys were in a bubble, and you had a couple NBA guys come out and talk about their anxiety in the bubble, and it messed their head up a little bit. Um, just thought there was really no outlet, and I was just thinking to myself, I was like, God, there's a lot of athletes with anxiety out there, and it just stuck with me. I looked up the website name, there was nothing there, and I just figured I'm going to start a movement here about athletes with anxiety and create a support group, try and spread my story and my message, because I grew up I kind of had a traumatic childhood. My mom had a brain tumor and was not supposed to live past my kindergarten year, and that's what a lot of my anxiety comes from, my childhood, um,
Yes.
being exposed to drugs, violence, certain things that I probably shouldn't have seen when I was younger. And what I try and encourage the people is, we were talking about your support group, medicine only being like part of the equation. The
Yes, a
other
good
part is,
therapist. Yes, and what? Yes.
yes, is self-discovery. like with my
Mm,
therapist, I just wanted to get to, why am I this way? And we literally went back in my childhood and revisited every traumatic event that I could remember to kind of work through it. And there were things that were triggers for me that I didn't even know until we visited those moments. And once you start to work backwards and figure out why you are where you are, and work through your traumas, you'd be amazed how you feel coming out the other side. I have a couple friends that are seeing therapists now that don't deal with anxiety, depression, and they love seeing their therapist now.
Jordan, in these few minutes that we have, how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, just reach out to me with, you can email me at athleteswithanxiety@gmail.com, or you can get on Instagram, Athletes with Anxiety, and just send me a message on there. Those are the quickest ways to get a hold of me. And I'm happy to help out with anyone. I'll talk to anybody. And it could be even if you're just having a rough day and need someone to talk to that day. But I also, I have a lot of professional athlete friends and coaches that, I talk to on a daily basis, and just know that you are not alone. A lot of them
Yeah,
deal with this, and it's a journey, but you will get through it.
that's important to let them know. And that's what we try to do. You
Yep,
are not alone. This thing is a process, it's a journey. I
100%.
know it is for me, Jordan. I know it
Yes,
is for a whole lot of people. And
it's
that's what
been
we try to do here. What
right.
makes you feel good? Yes, we have anxiety, but you're not alone.
Yep,
Yes, you have depression, but you're not alone. Yes, you dealing with loneliness, but you're not alone. There's a
100
network here. There's support here. There's people who get you. You're not weird, you're not crazy.
facts.
This is this is life. We
Yep,
go through things, but we get up. Sometimes
exactly.
we can't walk the way we used to walk, but that's okay. Sometimes we can't run the way we used to run, but that's okay. We
Right?
reinvent ourselves, we reimagine ourselves.
Exactly.
Jordan, as we come to an end of this experience, mental health in you, I want to thank you so much for being a part of it.
Oh, thank you
You
so
know,
much
you're
for having me.
such a blessing, and so many people are going to be impacted in such a positive way.
Anytime.
So
It's my pleasure.
thank you so much, and we got to do it again.
Oh,
You know,
definitely.
we got to do
Anytime you let me know, I'm ready.
it. Okay, we're gonna talk some hip hop next time.
Yes,
It's a
definitely.
big hip hop fan. Yes,
Definitely.
never been to New York. Go figure, but that's okay.
I'm gonna make it there someday.
Okay, Jordan, thank you so much,
Thank
and thank
you.
you so much for being a part of Mental Health in You, y'all. I'm Cynthia Timms. Peace and light. Have a good day. Thank you.